Hodan, good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming to studio.
Oh, thank you for having me.
This was years... Oh, go ahead.
Just thank you so much for having me here this afternoon. It's a real pleasure.
Oh, it's great to meet you in person. This has been years in the making. What does it mean for you, Hodan, to just finally be on stage?
Those roots within, if we look at the sign that we've developed for this project, it shows roots reaching down into the ground and us reaching towards the sky. It's been a collaborative project of the last 3 years with Alida Esmail and Sophia Wright. You know, at the beginning, they didn't know very much about deaf culture. They'd had some limited experience, but this has been a chance for them to really delve deep into deaf culture, into learning together. They've both been taking sign language courses as well, so that we're able to communicate more directly. It's been a wonderful opportunity for them to learn over the last 3 years and for us to learn together today. Now I'm very excited to be showing what we've been working on for 3 years collaboratively. Finally, the day's come, and we'll be finished on March 1st. But I'm hoping, who knows, maybe we'll be able to continue and even possibly tour the show around as well.
Okay, a tour. That sounds all very exciting. You mentioned...
We'll see.
Yes, we're going to manifest it. We're throwing it out there. You mentioned that the people you worked with and the people you've collaborated with didn't know a lot going in about deaf culture. What's it like for you to transmit that, to pass that knowledge on?
So the first time I started working with hearing people in a theater context was Voyageurs Immobiles. In 2015, they hired me as a deaf artist. And it was my first time working with people from the hearing community who were not involved in the deaf community. So it really was another load for me to take on to educate the people that I was working with about deaf culture, about what it means to make an accessible space. So it wasn't that everything was ready and set for me. It really took a lot of time and energy for me as a consultant and as an actor to make sure that the space that was run by hearing people was accessible to me as a deaf artist. You know, I needed to explain to them, for example, about hiring an interpreter on a daily basis because there were non-signers in our team, making sure that the lighting was accessible, everything to make sure that I was an equal member of the team. So I worked with them for 3 or 4 years. We got to know each other, and we've had several shows across different venues. Then that project came to a close, and I have worked with some hearing people in other projects, but now this has been my main project. And it's a very interesting experience to move between the deaf and hearing arts worlds.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about when you think of the arts. What is more accessible than the arts? What is more inclusive than the arts? And yet you talk about how that accessibility was not necessarily there off the top. How would you rate accessibility in the arts right now in Montreal and Canada?
To give you an honest opinion, in Quebec, we are far behind in terms of accessibility in the arts. For example, here, different arts venues and museums don't have interpreters prepared, don't have interpreters on site. In other places, that is common practice. So we really need to improve because, you know, we look at, for example, in 2020, we had a huge change in terms of arts. A lot of things became more open, more welcoming, more inclusive. There was a recognition of what's needed. And I think also there was an increase in arts funding as well when we look at different projects that were supported in that time, creative development that was supported. But still, when we look at arts accessibility today, is not fully 100% accessible. For example, the Musée des Arts Contemporains, the MAC, and the May, have really done a lot of work to become models for accessibility within the arts in Montreal. It's wonderful to be able to look at what shows I'm interested in going to and see that they have interpreters available. I think they're wonderful models that need to be looked to by other arts institutions in Montreal. There are many different cultural institutions and museums who could look to them as a good example. A lot of other places don't have interpreters, and they often will say that it's about finances, that they each need to look at their financial situation. But when we look at Europe, when we look to the United States, they're far more advanced compared to us here in Quebec in terms of arts. I love being here in Quebec. I love our community, but we really need to grow our accessibility practices for the deaf community.
And you are trying to do just that with this piece, those roots within. Some of the elements that are interesting here within this show, the vibrations are part of this performance. Tell me a little bit about that. For audience members who will be attending, what will they be feeling and experiencing with these vibrations?
Well, as you know, in the deaf community, we can't hear music, but we do experience music through vibrations. That's how we engage with music. And for those roots within, from the very beginning, I said I wanted to work with vibrations. I wanted it to be an equal experience. I didn't want to work with interpreters who were interpreting the music for me as a deaf artist. I wanted hearing people to also tap into that sense of vibrations. Some people love it, some people don't. Some are sensitive to vibrations. A lot of deaf people really enjoy that vibrational sense. And they can feel it all through their body, through your chest. It's a pleasant experience for a lot of people in the community. It's fun, enjoyable. It's like a party. It's playful. But, for hearing people who are more used to, an auditory experience, this is a different way to experience music.
This is a ballet dance, contemporary dance that will be taking place. You're on stage too, though. Hodan, what is going to be your role throughout this performance?
So it's not a ballet, but it is, yes, more contemporary dance. It is choreographed. I incorporate a lot of African dance. My mom was a great model for me. I watched her dance as I was growing up. Now, of course, I didn't hear her, but I watched her and experienced her movements, and that was a real way that my culture was transmitted to me, was through vibration, through seeing her dance. So, and I'm also a dancer. I'm not so much a contemporary dancer and more of an African dance is more my style. So you'll be seeing that a lot in the piece.
So those roots within, we'll get to explore your African roots?
Yes, exactly.
We're
anchored very much within that.
Do you have a favorite part of this piece?
My favorite part is one that's involved with water, and it shows a lot of me poking my body as part of that piece. It represents the struggles and the barriers and frustrations I've had in my life, growing up in a family where I couldn't communicate with people. And there's a lot of metaphor about, as I poke different parts of my body, the blood coming out, and this showing the suffering that I've experienced, how much I've had to fight in this life. And we're always fighting to spread awareness within the deaf community. And then there's also that water, the cleansing piece. And there's the loud vibrations very much incorporated within that. And it's a very powerful segment of the show.
What was that like for you, Hodan? Because you're an educator now. What was it like growing up around people with whom you had trouble communicating?
Yes, so I grew up in Somalia, and then I moved to Djibouti. And then my parents decided I should move to France for school because they had a better chance for deaf education. I really thank my dad for that. He was involved in the government. He'd visited many countries, and he encouraged me and supported my move to France. Then I moved here to Canada. I've lived here for many years. But really, I experienced language deprivation as a child. So in terms of learning, vocabulary and having a full understanding, that came to me much later, more at 10, 11 years old. So a lot of those literacy and language skills came much later. I also learned a lot in Montreal. Moving here really helped me to advance my language. But my parents didn't know sign language. Luckily, my siblings did, so they would help interpret for me in my family context. But today, when I don't want the same. I want models for the kids that I work with. I worked with children at Gabois Elementary School, which is a deaf elementary school, and now I also work at Lucien Pagé, which is a deaf high school. Now I'm working there part-time. I used to work at Gabois full-time. But it's important for students, for them to see someone like me and to have me there as an educator, because they're also experiencing language deprivation in the same way that I did. I really want to encourage parents to learn how to sign to support that education for their children and that language development, because otherwise it can cause a lot of barriers in communication, including into adulthood. So I always encourage kids, to have those good models, to have those good role models, and I want to take on that role for them as well, so that they can also grow up to be good models for the next generation. We can keep that rolling.
Hodan, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And good luck with the show.
Absolutely. I'm very excited. Next week. Until March 1st. Thank you.
Thank you.